Hello, we're here at the OECD. We've just finished a competition committee meeting on the subject of consumer-facing remedies. It was a very interesting discussion. We're fortunate here to have Adam Land, who's a senior director at the UK Competition and Markets Authority. He was actually leading the team that was responsible for the background paper for this subject. And so thank you very much for joining us,
Thanks for
Adam.
having me.
So when we talk about consumer-facing remedies, we're talking about remedies that are aimed at solving problems on the demand side, competition problems. How can these problems arise?
So in the paper we've set out three main sources of problems facing in consumer-facing markets. The first is that it can be expensive or difficult or costly for customers to make choices or to exercise choice. So they can face costs of searching for a market, it can be difficult to find information, they can find it hard to switch, for example, because they've got unfair contract terms in their market. So that's the first sort of problem. The second problem really comes down to the way in which customers are making decisions, and there's a whole literature from behavioural economics about some systematic biases that customers can sometimes be subject to in decision making, but also equally important in my view is the context in which customers are making behaviour decisions. So customers may be subject to extreme stress, they may be in emotional situations, for example in choosing a care home, and those factors can mean that people make decisions which afterwards they come to regret. And then the third area, and I think this is really important, is that suppliers themselves can take actions which make things worse for consumers. So suppliers can make it harder to find information, they can make it difficult or costly to switch providers, they can be mindful of those biases and just play on them a bit as well. So the role of competition agencies and our remedies is to look at the underlying causes of the problems and seek to put in place effective measures to tackle them.
Oh, that's great. So I think that we heard today in the discussion that a lot of authorities are maybe thinking about this kind of remedy, but not many have actually extensively applied them in practice. I think the UK is maybe rare, and just given the range of remedies that it's applied. So can you tell me about the different remedies that a competition authority could consider when they're faced with these types of problems?
Sure. So there's a real sort of spectrum of things that agencies can do. So I suppose the very simplest interventions that agencies do are really aimed about providing information and disclosing information and forcing companies to be transparent about the products that they're offering. I think a big focus now for ourselves and other agencies is on areas which are looking to encourage the roles of intermediaries, search intermediaries, application developers to design products that help customers navigate markets, modern markets in particular. Also, I think we're not afraid, if necessary, of intervening with more, with harder edged remedies, including price caps, for example. We did that in the energy market in relation to prepayment meter customers. So, really, I think we always want to look at things that are going to be effective and they're going to deliver better outcomes for customers.
Great. And what would you say from the discussion today, maybe the one or two takeaways that are the most important to keep in mind when you're encountering challenges, you're not certain if a given remedy might be effective in a market? What do you think are the top one or two things that an authority should keep in mind?
I think probably two things really. First is to make sure that you build an evidence base about the intervention that you're trying to put in place. So Stephen Hunt talked a lot about some of the sort of the high-tech things that you can do in terms of randomized controlled trials, but even actually some of the simpler things like just talking to customers and understanding their experience and trying out some ideas with customers can make a difference to the impact. So that's the first area, and I think the second area that came up a lot in the discussion today is not to be afraid to go back to a market. If something works a bit but could work better, that doesn't mean you failed, it means you've learned something. And I think that's something that as agencies we need to be mindful of, is that sometimes you don't get it perfect first time, but it's all part of a learning process and part of getting a better deal for customers.
Great, thank you so much, Adam, and thank you very much for watching.
Thank you.